Hello, this is Sidney Hill. I am the Public Information Officer for the Second Judicial District Court here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I want to welcome everyone to another session of Coffee with a Judge. And today we're having coffee and conversation with Judge William Parnall, who is a member of our Children's Court bench. Well, Judge Parnall has been on the Children's Court bench since 2007. And before that, he had a long and distinguished career as an attorney in private practice. And so he's going to talk to us a little bit about Children's Court and a little bit about some of his experience as a private attorney. So first of all, Judge Parnall, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
Okay. So let me just ask the first question. The first question is one that we ask all our judges when we sit down for these coffee sessions. And that is, before you became a judge, as I mentioned, you were an attorney in private practice. So can you just tell our audience a little something about, first of all, what brought you to the law? Why did you wanted to become an attorney, and how did you decide what areas of law you wanted to practice?
Well, it's always an interesting story, I think, for everyone who's been in the law field for a long time. I was in Santa Barbara, California, in a PhD program in Spanish and Portuguese literature. Had no intention of going to law school, and realized that I was headed for an ivory tower where a lot of decisions were made by a small group of people. I started disliking the idea of being in that situation, although I got along with everyone and thought it would probably be fine. I also was in the 70s, I was reading about a lot of injustice that was occurring in the world. And I thought that I could read about it and write about it, but there really wasn't anything I could do about it. I had no power to do anything. So I decided to quit and go to law school. And once I was in law school, I pursued all areas of the law because I really had no idea what area I was going to go into. And the prospect of being a judge never occurred to me. Sometimes you don't really have a choice in what happens to you. You have to follow the river that's flowing. And I ended up in the city defender's office doing petty misdemeanors until that office disappeared. And I got a job with the felony division of the state public defender's office. And then gradually moved into juvenile law, where it was more comfortable for me because I felt like there was more I could do with young people.
Okay, great. And when did you decide to make the switch from being an attorney to becoming a judge?
Well, early on, I realized that, or I believed that there really wasn't the conflict between the defense lawyers and the prosecutors as much as some people believed. I think that many good lawyers on either side of the fence wanted justice done and wanted a reasonable result. So I had a good relationship with prosecutors and defense lawyers, and always believed that I should be in a position where, because I cared about what everyone said and cared about the community, that I should be on the bench. So I tried many times to get an appointment by the governor as a judge, both in Metropolitan Court and District Court, and was not successful for many years, probably 20 years. And then finally, the community, I think, realized I was trustworthy enough to put me in that position, and I had support, and Governor Richardson appointed me after 8 tries through the commission.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk about Children's Court. And I know that it's probably because of the cases that get a lot of attention in the news media that most people who are not familiar with the justice system assume that children's court is basically just the delinquency court where, you know, you are dealing with kids that somehow are involved with, you know, being accused of committing crimes. But there's a lot more to children's court than just that. So can you tell us, our audience, you know, what other types of things children's court deals with?
Well, if you think of children's court as the place where the system deals with lives of young people, it's a little easier to understand that young people get in trouble because they do things that young brains don't really understand, or don't, the gravity of which they don't understand. And some of it is because of trauma they've received. Some of it is about addiction that's maybe a result of the trauma they've received, mental health issues, all kinds of things. And the other side of what I do is what's called abuse and neglect, which means that when a child is abused or neglected, they are then subject to a petition by the children's court attorney, Children, Youth and Families Department, of a petition. And the parents, called the respondents, are brought into court. They are treated in a way that will hopefully rehabilitate them if they have an addiction, or give them mental health services, help them in any way they can. Reunification with the family is the initial plan for all these families. And if I can help them, and the Children, Youth and Families Department can help them, then they are reunited with their children. That's the idea. If that's not possible after 6 months or a year or 15 months even of trying, then it becomes clear that something has to be done. The children have to be placed somewhere else permanently and be taken out of foster care so they don't languish in foster care, and be placed somewhere where somebody can make sure they're going to school, make sure they're not abused, make sure they're getting fed. And it's kind of simple, really. Kids can be very resilient if they're just in a setting that can nurture them to the point where they can succeed. I also then do adoptions where we adopt kids out to families that want them when their parents' rights have been terminated. If it can't work out, the parents aren't stepping up and helping themselves enough to get their kids back, then the children go through an adoption process with somebody who does want them. And we hopefully get them in a good family that will take good care of them.
Oh, great. Now, you know, these cases are not easy cases to deal with, you know, and a lot of them, I'm sure on your part, require some tough decisions. And I know you can't speak about individual cases, but do you have sort of a method for going about making decisions when you're dealing with these families?
It's easier now for me. I'm 69 years old. I've been on the bench for 14 years. I was a lawyer for 40 years before that. So I've known a lot of people. I've seen a lot of problems. I've seen a lot of addiction issues, mental health issues. And it's easier and easier for me to see that things are not going well and they're not going to go well, so that I can make a decision based on the evidence that I'm presented as to whether or not this really is going to work, or whether it's not going to work, both in the criminal setting and the delinquency setting, where a child seems to be a danger, seems to be sociopathic, seems to be a predator, and has to be separated from society because they will not conform and they're dangerous, or whether they're just acting like a dumb kid and need some help, need to be steered in the right direction, have some role models, so that then they can get out and be a productive member of our community. or in the abuse and neglect setting, whether parents can make it. And if they can make it, then that's great. And I'm very happy when I reunify a child with their parents, because the parents step up and work on their own lives so that they can get their children back. So that's how it works.
Oh, great. So let's step away from all that seriousness for a minute. Now, what do you do when you're away from the bench to sort of relax and unwind? I mean, what do you like to do in your free time, so to speak?
Well, I like to do many things, but one thing I've always done is try to have a balance between law and life.
Mhm.
And when I was in law school, I met a man who became the bass player in a band I played in called Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Oh, okay.
And his name was Charles Daniels.
Ah,
And for 17 years, we played together in a country, western, and rock and roll band on the weekends.
all right,
He recently passed away, or a couple of years ago passed away, and
right.
lost that connection, but I still play music with another band that he used to play in called the Woodpeckers, with former District Judge Woody Smith and Tommy Jewell. And so there's judges do have other lives besides law.
Okay. Yeah, and for people who may not know that, Charles Daniels was a former Supreme Court Justice here in the state of New Mexico. And the other gentlemen that Judge Parnall just mentioned are also former judges. I think they're both retired now, isn't that correct, as judges?
Yeah, they're both retired.
Yeah.
Woody Smith was a district court judge. Tommy Jewell was a district court judge in children's court, where I am.
Right.
And I like to think I kind of took his job over when he retired.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So you guys play what kind of music? Country and what else?
Country, western, rock and roll in the old Lawyers, Guns, and Money band. Now we play more blues and rock and roll songs.
Okay. All right. And what kind of venues do you play?
We play at a place in Corrales. It's called the Corrales Bistro a lot, because our crowds tends to go there and they know we play there. So
Okay.
will come to see us there, and private parties and other
Okay.
places.
All right. We'll have to look you up. Okay. Well, so is there anything else that you can tell us about Judge Parnall that our audience might find interesting, or any messages you want to impart to people about children's court or anything of that nature?
Well, I've always believed that it almost doesn't matter what you do in your life, whether you're a judge or a lawyer, or you work with electronics, or you're a doctor, that you're going to have an effect on the world around you. And I like to hope that the world around me is a better place because of what I've done. So when I leave this world, I will leave back behind me something that is better than it was, at least not worse.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are probably families that would say that you have done that. So thanks a lot for joining us. And this was an interesting conversation for me, and I'm sure for the people that are watching it.
Thank you very much. I hope.
Well, thank you again, Judge Parnall, and thank you to everyone out there listening. We hope you join us again the next time we sit down to have coffee with a judge. Goodbye.